Hello everyone. Welcome to another exciting Tuesday Eventide Patreon only stream. Hi there, I'm Jason Bowman. I'm the Director of Game Design at Paizo and the creator of the Eventide setting. Today, what I'd like to do is chat about the ongoing development and design of Wolfren's Fate, the introductory adventure. We've kind of finished up the first chunk of it. Both my groups have completed their playthroughs of the first installment. That's the installment that's already out to all of you, and you can find that on minotaurgames.com if you missed it. You can also find it on the Patreon if you go back a few posts. But both groups have now completed that material, right? You know, they've both done their full loop of all the rooms. They got a whole bunch of loot. They got a bunch of experience. And, you know, they got, more importantly, they got the key that allows them to proceed to the next step of this adventure, which is diving deeper into this dungeon. The dungeon is kind of, it has a series of kind of gate locks preventing them from going further until they kind of wrap up the current section. So the first one, they had to get the key, which they could only really get after they explored the whole thing. The second piece, you know, has its own lock at the end of it that prevents them from going on to what is, in actuality, the finale for the adventure. This second part is called the Dark Laboratory. And this piece of the adventure is a little bit more straightforward than the first part. It's designed specifically to be something that the players can probably get done with in, say, 2 sessions. So I don't think it's particularly huge, and when combined with the previous piece, it should be just about enough to get the PCs almost to second level, which is kind of where I want them to be going into kind of the actual second part of the adventure, which involves kind of exploration around town and beginning the search for the ring that they need. But we'll get to that. So today what I'd like to do is just chat a bit about the adventure, where kind of this whole part is going, and talk about, you know, kind of what encounters the PCs might be expected to deal with. So to start off, I think actually this coming session, because I have a session this Thursday and then this coming Monday, I actually think these sessions are going to be a little low-key, because I think both groups are going to get to spend some time in town. So one of the things that I'm doing right now is that I'm spending some time building some stuff for the GM's library. This isn't up on the website yet because I'm not done polishing it. But what I'm doing is I'm creating kind of actual lists of what some of the shops have. And in most cases, this is just me culling the stuff from, you know, the core rulebook down to a shorter list that's like, this is what this shop carries, this is how many they have. You know, just kind of giving a sense of kind of what, you know, the players can expect to find if they visit these places. As GM, I don't think you have to use them as absolutes, but I'm going to use them as guidelines to kind of rein in what the players can buy. The world of Eventide isn't this sort of place where you just shop from everything in the book. That's not how it works. Magic items are far less common than they are in like Galarian or other settings. So having a list that's like, yeah, this is what is available. So one of the notes that I put in there was, you know, you can visit Ingot, right? The metalsmith whose shop is just down the road from Wolfren's tower, and he's got a variety of kind of metal weapons and metal armor for sale. And I literally list the ones that he has and what quantity he. He's got, you know, a silver weapon. He's got a cold iron weapon, right? You know, that he just happens to have in stock right now. And it also talks about the fact that he was actually trained in Varnathus. The owner of the shop was trained in Varnathus and knows how to craft basic magic weapons, but cannot do so unless he finds the proper kind of linked anvil that allows the creation of magic weapons in this world, or he gets some. You can either do it by having an enchanted anvil, or you can have enchanted ingredients to make the weapon. And he doesn't have either. So one of the things that I think I'm going to include in the end of Wolfren's Fate, right towards the end, is going to be one of the things you can get out of Wolfren's laboratory is a bunch of kind of enchanted coke, right? The coal they use to make steel, that he can then use to make magic steel, which will allow him to make a magic steel. So, or magic weapons, right? Depending on what the players want. So I think that's going to be a reward for the end of this adventure, is their first magic weapon will probably come via the town's blacksmith with the help of some of the stuff they find in Wolf vaults. So they can shop there. One thing that I've also started building into this is interludes. These are not really encounters. They are more like scenes that you can stock the world to give the world a bit more. Just there are things happening, and you can use these while the players are out shopping, just going about their day-to-day business. You just throw these in and describe them as part of their exploration of the town. So they can be anything, right? But in this case, one of them in particular is required for the GM to drop at some point in time during their early exploration in the town. And then the rest are kind of optional. So some of the optional ones are things like, there is a visiting scholar who's being led around by a member of the Waysong Guild. I've got one in here that speaks to the High Priest of the Resolute Heart, which is a group of kind of fanatical clergy who believe that the gods have kind of turned their back on the world because people don't worship enough anymore, because people are too sloppy and lazy in their worship. So this high priest Olar is blocking an intersection, giving a fiery sermon, basically condemning everyone, saying that if they don't straighten their ways and offer proper obeisances to Valanav, that they will find themselves drawn into the storm of the dead upon their passing, instead of walking the true path to Valanav's court, right? Flowery nonsense preaching, doom and gloom if people don't return to these ways. Now, most of the local clergy aren't on board with this, especially some of the clerics of Astramari, but some of them are, and that's kind of one of the groups, one of the secretive groups, this Resolute Heart group. So this is a chance just to introduce them. There's not really anything to be done here. The players can screw with this individual. They can make his sermon kind of a nuisance or something. But there isn't like an encounter here. It's not a fight. It's just a scene, and they can pay attention to it. They can ignore it. They can walk past it. It doesn't really matter. Now, as I said, there is one of these that is important. That I want to introduce, and that is when the PCs go to one of the shops. And it could be the Roaming Ogre that sells just kind of general adventuring gear, or it could be Veryl's Sleep that sells alchemical items. One of those two. They arrive at the shop to find it filled with a troop of lumberjacks, a troop of loggers who are buying gear and equipment and preparing to head out on an expedition. And in this they will meet Ulvain Koss, who is a big giant half-orc lumberjack, and he is big but super friendly and super gregarious, and is super happy to talk to the PCs and explain that him and his troop are heading out to go. They just got a contract for a rich vein of gemwood trees, and they're going to go harvest them. So this is a chance to do two things. One, it sets up a bit of exposition about the gemwood and the gemwood trees, so the players can interact with that. And two, it sets up Ulvain Koss and his entire troop as a group of lumberjacks. Because I think in part 3, in their travels from Warmbone out to Red Thistle, they may run into these lumberjacks again, perhaps in a spot of trouble. So my thought here is, this is just, it's an old trick. It's throwing some breadcrumbs out and then making sure that you come around and pick them up later. Yes, he is a lumberjack and he is okay. So I think, these are just little things, that I like to sprinkle in my stories and my adventures. Some of them don't mean anything. Some of them are just there to add flavor and color and introduce concepts, right? I'm still trying to think of a way, and I may be a bit more blatant on this, but I haven't decided yet. There is a rather famous thief in town, and the town guard is looking for this thief, but they're trying to keep it on the hush-hush. So I'm trying to figure out a way to perhaps indicate that this legendary thief is somewhere in town through one of these scenes, but I haven't quite decided on the means that I'm going to do it. So that's kind of all the interlude stuff. And honestly, between shopping and some selling, some shopping, some interaction with various NPCs and stuff, I honestly think both of these sessions are going to fully be half just stuff in town. Right? At least 1 to 1.5 hours. Probably just going to be doing some shopping, figuring out, how they want to spend some money, doing some negotiation in the group. I didn't really ask them to do that out of character because honestly, for their first time, I want them to go to these places and interact with these PCs, even if that does cost us some at the table time. I'll cope. And it gives me, frankly, more time to do more of the writing for the part. So I think this second half will probably end up being 3 sessions, but just because the actual dungeon part is only 2, and it's going to be broken up over 3 sessions. So anyway, eventually they're going to return to the tower, and this is where things get thorny because both groups have been removed from the tower or about to be removed from the tower in the case of the second group, and the no matter what group you're talking about, they're going to have to get back in. And there's a couple ways they can do that. The easiest way is just to go talk to the lieutenant who's been stationed there. This is the same Lieutenant Havanok that questions them when they leave. And Havanok and the Blue Banners are there just to make sure that nobody goes in. They still don't know what exactly they're going to do with the tower or its contents. And honestly, they're not 100% sure that the danger is past, so they don't just want anyone wandering in there just yet. And so they're keeping an eye on it. But if the PCs come back and honestly say, hey, listen, there's some things that we think they can either be straight and be like, hey, listen, we got a key to go down to the second floor. We should go check that out. We found it. We'll figure it out. And they'll let them, right? Or they just need to be like, yeah, there's some unfinished business in there and we want to check it out. In either case, the Blue Banners will let them back inside. Now, there's another option as well, and that is they can sneak in. And there's 2 ways they can do that. One is there's 2 guards at night, and one, every once in a while, one will go, get a drink or, go have a bio break, as it were. And the other one is then they're all by themselves, which means they can distract that guard, and sneak in. Not too hard, would require some skill checks, and is possibly prone to catastrophe. The other way is to go into the sewers and try and find the tunnel that leads to Area 7. That's tricky. It's beyond the scope of the adventure. They would definitely have at least an encounter with like some oozes or centipedes or something nasty in the sewer. It's beyond the scope of the adventure, but it's also possible. And then even once they find it, they have to find a way to burrow in because the passageway is too narrow. But that is mentioned in the end. So one way or the other, eventually they're going to make their way back in it. And that's where we get to the adventure itself. So I want to show the map where it's at right now so you can get a sense of where we are at on the map. I've done some more work on this. Some folks who watched the Secrets of Eventide stream on Saturday, if you're in that, you've heard a lot of this. It was me talking about my philosophy of how I build encounters. Today we're going to focus purely on what's going on in the Dark Laboratory. I'm not going to talk about process. If you want process stuff, go back and watch the Saturday video if you have access. So let's take a look at the map. The map has evolved a bit since Saturday. And this is where it's looking right now. So this is the dark laboratory as it currently stands. It's still a work in progress. So you can see the stairs in the lower left-hand corner. You can see the shaft where the elevator is, right? For those who have read and checked in on the first floor, there's an elevator that travels between the floors, but it's broken. So it's not at this floor, which is why there's just a pit. And that's down the hall from the stairs. And those two, by the way, because I'm an architecture nerd, the relationship between the staircase and the elevator is exactly the same distance as it is on the first floor. Because if I didn't do that, I think my architecture professor would appear and slap me. One of them. Probably Harvey. Harvey was. That's okay. And then you go into the library itself. Now, there's some interesting stuff going on in here. I've added some books, some bookcases. There's some tables with weird crystals on them and stuff. There is, in kind of the middle there's this kind of large pile of like mold and mushrooms and plants. And there's this weird symbol on the ground. So that's the library. The north west of the library is also kind of collapsed, and there's water and pools over there. That leads directly into the sewers, and this is a full passageway. The players cannot find this and end up stumbling into this. They have to go into the floor above, because this is in the deeper sewers, and they're probably not going to far. But that is a passageway that leads into the sewers, and that is an area where someone broke in centuries ago. And then there is the staircase that goes down to the from the library to the laboratory. And this is where I'm still doing a lot of the work, but I'm starting to pack out the laboratory. I need to do some drawings and stuff and play around. But I'm creating kind of some various chambers and the laboratory itself. So let's talk about what they're going to encounter once they. So when they first arrive, they're in kind of a servant's quarter, a servant's chamber. And this was used by Wolfren when he had guests down in the library helping him with research or something. He would hire in some servants to come and make sure that they had tea and sandwiches, so that they could keep up with their work. And this chamber that they end up in is kind of this weird servants' chamber. It hasn't been used in obviously hundreds of years, but even then wasn't used very frequently for that. So from there, they can make their way into the library itself. There's nothing really spectacular about that first chamber. It's just kind of a setup. Allows them to get there. Now they can go and investigate the elevator. The door leading into the elevator is locked because the elevator is not on this floor. But they can pick it and open it and reveal kind of a deep shaft that goes who knows how far down. And goes up about 20 feet before ending in a stone floor above them, which is where the elevator is. I suppose there is a chance that some groups might be like, screw this floor, let's go down to a different floor. I don't know what to do about that. Let's hope they don't. Eventually, I will have the floor below this built out, so then it'll all work, but we're not there yet. So they can make their way into the library itself, and the first thing they encounter in the library is this weird, creepy symbol. We got this weird symbol. And so, this symbol here, let me move it. You just keep it right. That's probably about as good as it's going to get. It's kind of hard to see on this layout, but nope, there it is. So there is this weird symbol on the floor, and that's on the map. You can see it right there, kind of in the middle of the first chamber they enter. There's this weird symbol on the floor, and it looks like it's made with like charcoal or soot. And it's just a symbol drawn on the floor. There isn't really anything to it. If they check, it does radiate magic. Or rather, they will detect magic in the area. They won't know if it's that or something else because they're not high enough level for it yet. But there is that, and there's really no way around it. To venture deeper in, they have to get past it. And it's kind of a creepy little symbol with it does have like a weird eye shape in the middle, and it is kind of weird tendrils of soot and ash. Um, so, the only way to proceed deeper in the dungeon is to kind of edge their way around it. Now, what they don't know is that the proximity on this thing is like 10 feet. So they literally cannot get past it without triggering. And being first level, they have no ability to dispel it or make it go away. So they have to just kind of cope with it. And nothing happens right away. They just walk past it, and that's kind of all that happens. They're able to explore this place. There's going to be displays and interesting things that they can't really mess with. Some of them are protected by wards. Oh, excuse me. But there are some links in here that they're going to be able to take a peek at. Some of these are down below in the laboratory as well. So links and odd bits. There's going to be a fair number of things that point back to Wolfren's research, which speaks specifically to Eventide. So Wolfren was, very interested in this subject matter and was collecting odds and ends and relics from this time, especially from this region, because Eventide hit this region particularly hard. The elves of Ilsanvenir took a heavy hit by that storm coming. Darkness settling over them, and in late fall just caused a blizzard to set in, and it killed many in the 3 weeks while the sun was gone. So, eventually they'll be able to kind of get past this, and then they're confronted with this pile of mold. And anyone who draws near it is going to take cold damage, because it is a giant patch of brown mold. That's what you're seeing there in the middle of it. Here. So yeah, that's what you're seeing in the middle of that central chamber there, kind of blocking their way to wander straight to the laboratory itself. There's a patch of brown mold, and they can, deal with this and just skip the end, the bit at the top, and go straight to the laboratory. That is, of course, their choice. We'll see how they go. But if they want to avoid it, there's an easy enough way to do it. They just have to walk up and then come back down the other side, and then they don't have to walk through the mold, which would be very bad. Instead, they can just kind of skirt it. I think both groups will probably end up triggering the brown mold in some way, shape, or form, but we'll see. We'll see. God knows they both have characters who have a penchant for fire, which is bad. So if they make their way up to the north, that's where there is the first combat of the place, where there are some dire rats. And I think originally I was just going to have it be dire rats from the sewer, but I think I'm going to include a rat swarm as well, just because it's a new, fun, different encounter type for them. So a rat swarm, and some dire rats. I think I can make that work. I just thought of that as I was sitting down for the stream, so I want to kind of make sure you're seeing me do an encounter check here right now. So a rat swarm is only level 1. The dire rats are, what are they, -1? The giant rats? Yeah, they're -1. So, yeah, that shouldn't be too hard. If I want to shoot for a moderate encounter, I get 2 dire rats, or 2 giant rats and the rat swarm, which should be a fun encounter. Plus, I can also then add in the bit that you throw in an extra giant rat for every party member over 4. So both groups will face 3 giant rats, which will be a fun and difficult fight. Nothing in it is too particularly dangerous, but the swarm can be quite a nuisance. So that'll be their first full encounter. There's going to be plenty of stuff with books and things that they can learn about Wolfren and his studies here. They can confirm some theories from before. I think that'll all work out pretty well. So there's that. I think from there, they can make their way back down. They can pass by the brown mold again. And at this point in time, what I'm going to do is, while they're up there fighting, I'm going to remove the symbol, because the symbol vanished. And I'm not going to mention it to them. I'm going to leave it for them to notice as their pieces move. So we'll see if they pick up on that fact. And at this point in time is also going to be when I'm going to start giving them perception checks to feel like they're being watched, and, you know, hear the sound of, like, books toppling or falling open on shelves nearby. And what is happening is there is this shadow creature that has been summoned and is now hunting them. And I'm still in the middle of kind of writing some of this, but the current plan is to have it slowly stalk them as they make their way deeper and deeper into the place. And it'll probably start once they're done with the rats. So once they go up and deal with the rats, that's when I'm going to start having them, you know, make checks and stuff. Because at that point in time, this thing will have crawled out of the circle and will be trying to track them down. So I think there's definitely some fun to be had there. Now, that'll lead them down into the laboratory. I think the laboratory is going to have a simple puzzle dealing with an old experiment that's gone awry. The experiment that's gone awry has birthed, you know, kind of out of all the old alchemical reagents and stuff, it's birthed a pair of oozes. And I think this is going to be, you know, time to add a sewer ooze. And what else did I have? I had another ooze. It was, yeah, a slime mold. So I think there'll be a slime mold and a sewer ooze. And combined with that, I think I'm going to add in a bit of a puzzle. Because what happened was, when the experiment failed 300 years ago, you know, Wolfren had certain safety measures in his lab. And when these oozes got loose, they triggered them, and as a result, the doors and ways out of this chamber are all sealed and locked. So they have to defeat the oozes and then solve probably what will be some sort of puzzle, basic kind of puzzle, to turn off the security measures and open up the doors. So that'll be happening in kind of the central chamber here. I'm still kind of sorting some of it out. I have plenty of time because I highly doubt either group is going to make it to that chamber this week. After I deal with shopping and town encounters, I think I'm, matter of fact, I more than think, I'm almost positive that both groups will probably make it to the rats and be done with the rats, and then I'll start hunting them, and that's what we'll knowing them and how they play, I feel pretty safe. Assumption. So once they get those doors open, that allows them to explore the final chambers, one of which is a study where there's going to be, and I think that's the one I've already started building out on the upper right, is going to be a study where Wolfren, you know, hung out, did research, made plans. And the other one's going to be just kind of reagent storage. And I think this is at the point in time where the hunter may make its first attempt to attack player character if one of them is kind of off by itself. And I think this thing's going to be more powerful and they can drive it away. That's the thing. It's not going to want to attack anyone who's holding a lot of bright light. So it can be kind of driven away, and this isn't the time where I think they're going to fully fight it, but I think this is the time where it tries to pick one of them off. And once wounded, it flees to come back and try and get them again, probably later. Because after dealing with, you know, the oozes and the rats and dealing with the puzzle, I may try and add one more encounter floating around in here. Maybe some homunculus or something like that. That could be fun. But after all of that, the last thing that happens is in the study, there is an access that allows them to open up the way to the vault. Now, this signals the end of the Dark Laboratory part, because the access way to the vault, once it's opened, allows them to realize that the way is blocked, and that the only way to continue is to find Wolfren's signet ring, which they do not find a copy of anywhere down here. So they're going to have to go back up to the surface and try and find a signet ring. I suspect, knowing both groups and knowing most player characters, they're going to tear the place apart looking for a signet ring down here first, assuming that they've done something wrong. I will probably hand wave most of that and be like, yeah, you spend 4 hours tearing this room apart. There's no... just to give them kind of the hint that, hey, it's not down here. You're gonna have to look. So, one thing that I did, and the folks on Saturday got to see this, I'll let you see it too. This is a thing that I'm going to make available to all of you. It's a GIF for the final reveal that when they open up the vault, when they open up the way to the vault, what happens is the pool in the room drains, right? So you got the central laboratory room there. That kind of darker square in the middle is a pool, and the pool drains, and once it drains, a staircase appears and a doorway opens up that leads. And I have made an animated tile that does that. So here it is. Take a peek. There we go. I couldn't resist. It was far too fun to make. So, yeah, that's the tile piece. And that is actually the piece that you see in the map there. I just have it paused, because in Roll20 you can pause an animation. I have it paused at the very beginning. And when I unpause it, it'll run through the loop once, and that'll... So, yeah, that's pretty fun. I was pretty happy with that. That turned out kind of just the way I wanted it to. Water drains out, the stairs appear, does exactly what I want. So, when I drop this, I will be including this tile piece as well for everyone to use. It is a little bit bigger on the gift side, so if you don't have a paid Roll20 account, you can't use it on Roll20. You need to have, I think, the higher paid account to have the higher limit on a tile piece, because it is kind of a complicated piece. But if you're doing this on anywhere else, you could probably use like 6. So that is that. Sorry, I'm gonna So that's the Dark Laboratory. I think that, between puzzling out what's going on in the library, oh boy, between puzzling out what's going on in the library and dealing with rats and dealing with slimes and dealing with this hunter, the shadow creature, and the story of the shadow creature, by the way, the thing that's going to become apparent to the PCs as they dig through the library, which is why I think it's going to take them a little bit of time, is that if they make the right checks, it becomes apparent that someone has already rifled through this library a long time ago. And they clearly took certain things. What things they took? Who knows? The only thing they can tell is by context. That, like, oh, all of the books that were on this shelf, were rifled through, and the shelf is clearly half empty. And the other books on here are all dealing with, the planes. That's weird. So they should be able to decipher some things by context about what was missing. And whoever broke in here to steal these things, they're the one who left behind this symbol in the shadow creature to deal with anyone who comes in here. They didn't want anyone revisiting this place. So, so I think all of this, it will probably be several hundred more XP. I think it'll get the party probably up to about 800 would be my guess. There'll probably be a hefty story reward as well. So, I'll have to look and see how close I'm getting them to first level or to second level, but I don't quite think they're going to get it as part of this chunk of the adventure. So, the Dark Laboratory I don't think is a particularly long part. I think in the end, it's actually just the second section of part 1, which is Wolfren's Tower. And once I have that all done, going to be handing it off to an editor, because that's the other bit of good news. I am in negotiations now with an editor to go through the work and work with me to make sure that it is in tip-top shape. This individual I'm not ready to announce just yet because I want to make sure I got a deal. But the editor is very, very experienced doing Pathfinder 2nd Edition work. So that will be great, because it means that I've got an extra set of kind of skilled eyes looking at this material and making sure that it meets kind of standards. So I'm looking forward to that. I want to get all of kind of part 1 to them as a chunk, and then honestly I'll probably start having them go through the player's guide material, because there is so much of it. That will take a while, because it's currently, the player's guide is currently 45,000 words. So it's going to cost me a couple grand to have an editor go through it, but it'll be worth it, because I'll end up with a better manuscript. But again, all this stuff costs a lot of money. So, but we're going to make it happen. I'm excited to kind of wrap it up. So if anybody here has any questions about the Dark Laboratory or where it's going, I'll be happy to answer them here. We still got a few minutes before I want to tunnel off and get ready for my next stream. But yeah, I'm looking forward to wrapping this up. Of course, once this is done, once the Dark Laboratory is done, then we go to part 2 of the adventure, which is, trying to track down Wolfren's ring, which is going to be kind of, I think, right now it's a very simple kind of visit a number of places and talk to people. I mean, I could have it be as short as a single session. I don't want it to be. So I think part 2 is going to be not just going to these various places and talking to individuals, but you know how it is whenever you're out on a quest. You go and talk to an individual and they're like, hey, listen, I know you're interested in this, but, if you want this from me, I need a favor from you, right? There'll probably be some of that. I don't want to rely on that too heavily, but I do think there's at least 1 or 2 spots where I can do something like that. There's also just other opportunities for kind of adventure, and I think this might also be a spot where the Thunder Company becomes a bit of a menace in kind of part 2. So I'm hoping to get the Dark Laboratory wrapped up pretty quickly so that I can get to writing on that, because it is it's another part of the adventure where the players can go in 8 different directions. So I kind of have to have most of them worked out before the first session, despite the fact that I may not have enough time to get them all built right away. So that's kind of where I'm going next. The Dark Laboratory writing is proceeding decently. I'm in the middle of writing the kind of intro and start stuff, and I'm working on the library parts now, which is good because I have to run the first part of it in, 48 hours. So, busy. So yeah, that's where we're at. Honestly, work on the GM's library is one of those things that I try and fill in my time whenever I have moments between doing adventure prep. I always kind of knew it would be this way, which is why I was hoping to have a little bit more of it ready. Because I do actually have a lot of text to put up there. I just haven't had the time to go and build it yet. I think some of that will come here soon. I think I may even have some time coming up. Yeah, I appreciate that everyone's being very patient. I've certainly, I hold myself to a certain amount of pressure because I know that I work better when under a certain amount of pressure. But that does also mean that when I don't meet those expectations, I feel bad, right? I want folks to get what I've promised. So I'm working as fast as I can on that stuff, but life gets in the way. The past few weeks have had some challenges. But things are evening up now. I do also want to announce that during IzoCon, I will be doing a public seminar about Eventide. I'm going to be holding that, I believe right now, my plan is to hold that on Saturday, the 28th at 4 p.m. So I'm going to avoid the main block of Paizo streams. So if you're watching the Paizo streams, you don't have to worry about it. I'm not going to be running at the same time as any of those. There are some games that happen, I believe, in the evening, some streamed games. I may go against one of those because I got to go somewhere. So that is currently my plan, is that on the 28th, Saturday the 28th, I'm going to do a public chat about Eventide. I am going to... it's for all of you, it'll probably be pretty rudimentary. But I am hoping to show off some of the art and show off some of the fun things that folks can get by joining up. This is part of my my goal of trying to get us up to 100 patrons this month. We're at 92 right now. So I feel like we're not too far off. That's probably doable. But we got to work on it. So I'm going to do a public chat about Eventide. I'll do that, and then I'll probably roll into kind of Saturday gaming. There'll be no Dan that week because Dan is actually at PaizoCon. I will not be. He will be... Dan is at PaizoCon doing Sirenscape booth. I will not be at PaizoCon. Unfortunately. I really do want to go, but honestly, frankly, with the level of community spread right now of COVID, I don't really feel safe going to shows. I just don't. So I'm going to play it safe. I've got online streams and seminars and stuff, and I'll be doing those, and I'm excited to do them, but I'm afraid, yeah, I'm not going to be there. Trust me, no one feels worse about this than me. I do love shows, and I do miss going to them. So for those of you who are going to be at PaizoCon, I wish you all the best, and I wish you all the safe and happy and healthy PaizoCon, but not for me. So yeah, that's what we're doing. What else we got going on, right? I think that's about it. So yeah, if folks have any last minute questions, I'll be happy to take those. I'm just kind of looking at some of my outlines here. Seeing if there's anything else I missed. I think so. Some of it will come together as I'm writing, right? That's kind of how it always happens. Is I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm going to do something cool with, you know, some interesting things in, you know, worded cases that the players can't mess with, but they can look at and learn about. And so, you know, I think I'm going to include some relics from back in the time before Eventide, right? Like, he has one or two of those, and they're in, you know, warded, protected, you know, crystal bubbles, basically. And he's got, you know, a thing or two back from that era that the players can kind of observe and learn some stuff about. So, yeah, for the elevator shaft, if the players drop a 50-foot rope. Yeah, I mean, that is currently my thought. I don't know how far it is between floors. It may be more than 50 feet, right? The first and second floor are pretty close to one another, but that next floor may be. I haven't decided yet. There are ruins underneath Wormbone, and Wolfren's tower is perched on top of them. That's why he built it there. Part of the legend of Wolfren is that when he arrived in town, he wandered around for a bit with a cart filled with all of his stuff, found one particular business that he was like, yep, that one. Went inside, bought it the same day, had the building tore down, and put his tower up in that spot within like a month. And promptly moved in and lived there until the dragon attacked. Now, the truth behind that is that Wolfren did it because he was looking for something that would give him access to the ruins of Ilsanvenir, the city of Wormbone. And he wanted to be able to get access to them, so he bought that building specific. So, what's underneath Wolfren's tower ultimately? Vast elven ruins. And how deep do they go? Where do they go? I don't know right now, but that is the subject for a possible future adventure, is going down deeper into those ruins. So one thing that I had thought about in the early drafts of this adventure was that the players would arrive at a door that had a time lock on it. And I don't mean that it like, oh, it will not open for 100 years and it just happens to be now. No, more that the time lock said that the door only opened on certain days of the year. And it, it's months away. So the players just kind of go, oh, okay, we'll just come back to that later. But I don't really know if that makes a lot of sense. It depends on what I wanted to do behind it or anything. I had a thought about that, but I'm not there. I'm always kind of looking for ways to be like, yep, this is content for later. Come back later. It's not ready yet. This part of the dungeon is not for you yet. Go home. So yeah, instead, I think the shimmering portal that requires Ezran's signet ring to open, that then leads into the final part of this adventure, right? But they can't get there until they find the ring, which requires them to search around town until they can finally get, knowledge about where Wolfren's brother lived, and then go to visit Wolfren's brother and learn that his brother picked up a box of his effects that was left at the Skygazer Inn. And then, that will then lead them to Red Thistle, where they then have to help the brother to get the ring. So, it's a kind of a complicated series of winding path that ends up bringing them back all the way to the tower, where they can then finally go in and free Wolfren from his eternal slumber spell, which will then kind of reach us to the end of Wolfren's fate, because that's the big question. What happened to Wolfren? He's still alive. And then he can become an ally of the players, and that leads us on to other greater adventures, right? This entire adventure is about unlocking a quest giver, basically. So, and he's going to have plenty for them to do. So I may write a shorter interlude adventure. I was thinking about possibly writing an adventure. I had an idea for an adventure that deals with the kobolds of the nearby Mudfen, where you run a errand for a local alchemist or shopkeep, and they want some things from the Mudfens, which is where a lot of the best alchemical items grow. So I may do an interlude adventure that leads them down to the kobolds of the Mudfen, that draws them into some kobold politics, and allows me to set up the kobolds as both adversary and friend. Yeah, Wolfram will definitely have a gold exclamation. I believe that is tradition. So yeah, that's what we got going on in the Dark Laboratory. I'm hoping that if my writing goes well over the rest of this week and into the weekend, I may try my damnedest to get this draft up to everybody by the end of the month. That's my goal. I've got, let's see, what do I got? Today's the 17th. I have 2 whole weeks to get it done. That's not too bad. A little tight, but we'll see. Maybe I can make it, happen. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, folks, when I write adventures, one of the things I'm always kind of putting in the back of my head is, how can this lead to the next thing? And how can I create allowances in this that at the time seem like, no big deal, or just a natural part of the world that later become important, right? It's the whole lumberjack thing, right? I'm including lumberjacks. Why? No particular reason. But they are Chekhov's lumberjacks. They will appear again later and have relevance. But for that to pay off, I need to have other things that show up and don't have relevance later. It makes it all feel less like every aspect of it is planned, and everything that I mention as GM should be taken with a higher level of importance, which I don't necessarily. So, that's Dark Laboratory. I hope you are as excited about it as I am. I'm going to be running the first part of it here in a couple days. And then the first part will be run again in a couple days for the other group this coming Monday. I think it's probably going to take us at least into mid-June for these 2 groups to wrap up the Dark Laboratory, but I'm hoping to have it out to all of you before then. All right. Well, folks, that's all I got here today. I got to get ready for the other stream, so thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your week. We will see you next Tuesday for another patron-only stream where I'll probably break down what happened and talk about the state of the adventure at that point and where it's going from there. All right, folks. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.